upon the wicked stage. Well, Camera 3 today will emphasize not the magic of the theater, but the work and the weariness and the discipline and the disappointments that so frequently underlie that magic. Every year, hundreds, more likely thousands, of young actresses aim for New York with a common purpose, careers in the theater. And today in Camera 3, we're going to discuss this phenomenon with 4 actresses who have won the recognition and success that all these young fledglings dream of. Ms. Ruby Dee, perhaps best known for her performance in A Raisin in the Sun and Pearly Victorious. She appeared this summer as Cordelia in King Lear and as Catherine in The Taming of the Shrew at the American Shakespeare Festival. She's just going into rehearsal of a new production of Volpone to be presented first at Brandeis University. And Cornelia Otis Skinner, author as well as actress. She's probably best known for her one-woman shows, and the Skinner last appeared on Broadway in The Pleasure of His Company. Elaine Stritch, who has been starred in Broadway in Noel Coward's Sail Away and in Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. She won the Drama Critics Award for her performance in Bus Stop and may be seen this year in the new CBS series The Trials of O'Brien. And Inga Swenson, who's been starred in Broadway in 110 in the Shade, and she's played just recently Ophelia and Juliet in the American Shakespeare Festival up at Stratford. She is currently starring in Broadway's Baker Street. It's not our purpose on Camera 3 today, ladies, to find out if life upon the wicked stage is really wicked, but strangely that question still seems to bother some parents of potential Cornells or Fontans. Miss Skinner, would you say that in the theatrical profession one is likely to encounter lower moral or social standards than elsewhere?
I think that's charming and a terribly old-fashioned idea. In fact, I really don't think there was any time that the stage could be so terribly wicked. I think people rather like to think of it as being wicked, but it isn't. I think actors are morally, I think there isn't time for so-called wickedness. In the first place, you couldn't keep up leading a wicked life and keep your part, because you have to.
Maybe this legendary wickedness is a component of the supposed glamour of life in the theater.
You hear more about them; they get more publicity, so you attend to them in the papers. But understand that there are fewer divorces, say, among comedians than there is, the comparison between the population as a whole and entertainers.
So we may sort of assume that one we have put out of the way immediately. Well, talking now about our young woman from wherever who is coming to New York seriously intent upon breaking into the theater. How much education should she have before she tackles New York? I say how much because there seem to be differing opinions there.
Oh, I would say that she should get as much education as is at all possible.
You mean finish college, for instance?
Well, yes, if she can. I think college is a wonderful thing because not only does one get a chance to grow up in college, but to a great extent, but also most universities have a fine university theater, and university theater in this country is about the only place where a young actress can get a chance to learn some of the classics and to play in them and to play before audiences, as opposed to going to say an acting school in New York or something where she may get a chance to do a scene in class or something, but it won't be a full production with costumes and lighting and so on in front of an audience. And not only that, in a good university, she can study lighting and scenery and costuming and makeup and so many important things. If she's dying to act professionally, there's always summer stock in between the college years.
Do you agree with Miss Swenson on that?
Yes, I'd like to add this, too, that I think is terribly important for an actress, and that is life is so much at the grist of the mill of an actor. And the more you learn about history and philosophy and psychiatry and psychology and mathematics and what the great people did before in all walks of life, I think it enriches the storehouse from which an actor must draw for anything that he has to do. Absolutely. And the more he knows about life, I think first study about life and people, because they're languages, yes.
How about the professional schools and the training of a shall we say, formal nature that the young actress may obtain once she has arrived in New York?
Well, I don't know enough about the professional schools. I never went to professional school myself. I completely agree with what Mr. Swenson said about that college. You can get so much there. Again, as I say, I think language is terribly important because I think it helps your diction and your speaking voice and all that. And I think also if you can in college take the things that possibly you might get in a professional school. I'm not sure that this is an awful thing to say because it sounds as if they're not needed. But I think that besides the regular academic things that you can get is the use of the body, and dancing I think is important. I think most actors should take singing.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I think my father used to say, sing, hum your head off. He used to tell me when I told him I was going on the stage. He said, just go around the house humming. And I think singing, even if you haven't got a singer's voice, I think it's a terribly important thing, don't you?
It helps your rhythm, it helps everything.
Yes.
And nowadays, so much of the theater is musical theater anyway.
How about the crossover into musical theater?
What I was going to say was that a young girl has so much more chance of getting a job in the theater if she is able to dance a little bit and sing a little bit. I mean, she may be able to get a job in a musical, whereas if she cannot move at all or carry a tune or something, she has only one area to go into, and that's straight drama.
Well, is this type of training desirable? Now you have been in musicals, and Miss Stritch, you went from the straight theater into musicals.
I was just going to say, about this college thing, I am a living example of an actress who did not go to college. However, we're talking about this young girl who wants to come to New York and be on Broadway, right? When I was, may I talk about myself for just a minute to make my point? Not that I don't enjoy it. But anyway, when I was, I went to the Sacred Heart Convent for 12 years. And when I graduated, there was talk about what college I wanted to go to. In the last few months of school, I decided I wanted to be an actress, and I don't want to answer why. Maybe it's just because I wanted to get on a train. I don't know. But I went to the Mother Superior, and I investigated where I could go and live in New York and study drama thoroughly. And I think for young people who want to do this, the fear about the wicked stage, really, for parents, I think, is my goodness, my daughter is going to New York alone at 18 and live in an apartment by herself. I think that's wrong. I don't think it's right. I think that the girl must make it a point to find a way to present the situation to her parents whereby she can be protected, where she knows where she's going to go, she's going to study this, she's going to study that, so that it takes the fear away from it. Now, as far as college is concerned, I do think this is amusing. I did my first big musical on Broadway. It was Pal Joey. The revival, I hasten to say, not the original. But anyway, I had a line in a song called Zip. And the line was, Zip, I'm a heterosexual. Now, it got a huge laugh. And for 6 months, I didn't know why. Because I didn't know what heterosexual meant. Now, this is telling an awful story on myself. Why it didn't occur to me to go to a dictionary and find out what it meant, I will never know. But I was so terrified of letting anyone know that I wasn't with it and knew all these things that I never asked. And then I said, well, it gets a laugh, so why go into it? Now,
maybe we're better off.
Well, no, because I do think you reach a point where every girl in the theater or every young person in the theater has to make that transition from instinct to knowing what they're talking about. It's a very painful transition, but I think it has to come.
Well, certainly, whether you get it in a class or with a coach or at a college, the idea of study, work is very definitely part of the job that has to be done.
I think the day of the uneducated actress is completely over. I think it's been over should have been over forever.
I do think we should make it clear to this young girl who wants to be an actress, however, that it is not the most important thing to go to college. It's only if you possibly can, and nowadays it's so much easier to get to college than it was at one time. It may be more expensive in some circumstances, but it's not the all-important thing. For instance, you can come to New York and be studying acting and take classes at City College in philosophy and French and so on and so forth. I mean, it's not the all-important thing, but if you can do it, it's a good
I think
idea.
I was sounding a little stuffy about that college routine. I suppose when I'm thinking about young girls wanting to go into the theater, I'd like to say, can you possibly think about something else besides acting?
Right.
What about writing? What about production?
Yeah.
What about innovation of new forms?
Don't go into
what
it
about
unless you
something else
can't.
that's equally as exciting as acting?
But in the tender years when a girl first starts, I think that's all she's thinking about.
I
That's
guess.
all I was thinking about, was
You
just
can't
getting on the
dissuade
stage.
them.
Yeah.
You can't.
What additional skills, Miss Skinner, would you think a girl should have up her sleeve just to tide her by? For instance,
Oh, well, I
when you
think
say to many girls, do you type? Their first reaction is shock, and their second is that you've made a slightly indecent proposal. You know? Typing, you know, this horrible business.
Well, I think she should have not only things up her sleeve, I think it'd be awfully nice if she had her own income in her pocket. Because I certainly think she can't possibly count on an income coming from getting a job, because I've forgotten now what the percentage is of the unemployed actors and actresses to those who are employed. And she can't come hoping that and then she may be in a play that will last, have a long run, and it may close the next night. And she's going to have to keep the wolf from the door in many ways. I think she should be, that's one reason I think education is so important, because whatever job she might take up, one of their first questions is, have you got a college degree? And I don't know about typing. I type the things I write, but I can't read what I've typed myself. But I think she should have some other skill, and an ability to do something.
Yes.
An ability, for instance, I mean, even she got a job in a bookshop or something that she could...
Had something to do with
that
the
could be
profession.
mentally
Yes. What are one
stimulating.
or two of the possibilities there? Because I think our imaginary parent of our girl, we've just convinced father and mother that life on the stage is not wicked
The
the way it
wolves are
was.
prowling Broadway.
But,
yes.
But
they have the idea
very
that, well, if a
hungry
girl
making.
doesn't get a job on the stage, I hear they all become models, and that's more evil than the theater.
Well, it's
goes
every
the
bit as
legend.
difficult to get a job as a model as it is to get become an
Very
actress.
true.
I know some very naughty secretaries, just to take the actress, the actress, the actress.
I want to talk about specific opportunities, but before I do, there's one other thing that one hears. And one hears that when you come to New York to break into the theater, it's not what you can do, it's whom you know. Now, does influence help? What about that?
Oh, I don't think so. I think perhaps in the past it may have played a much larger part in launching a career than it does today. I think you might get one job from it, but I think ultimately it's the talent and the training that will count.
Ultimately it is, yes, but I also think that if the young girl has a letter of introduction to a producer or an important agent or someone like that, she must not be shy about using it, because it is so difficult to get past those receptionists that every little bit helps. It won't help in the long run, as Ruby says, because it's you have to have something behind the introduction, you know, a little talent.
What
Tonight,
comment
well,
did you
to
have
keep
on
you
that, Miss
going.
Skinner?
Well, I'm only going again, I'm going to talk about myself now. But when I first went on the stage, my father was considered about one of the grandest actors in the theater, and indeed he was. He was sort of the dean of the American theater. And Father gave me letters of introduction to the managers he knew, and he knew everybody. Now, I wore out shoe leather for nearly a year on Broadway trying to get jobs. They would see me because of my father. I got by that office boy. And I would see but I didn't get a job until finally I persuaded Mr. Winthrop Ames that I'd just as soon go on in a walking on part. I went on in a running on part. I went on in 5 parts. And but at least I did land the job. But with the influence and the fact that my father was a great personage in the theater, that didn't get me my job right away. I think, and also another thing, I think if you come in with your letter, and you have to be the type they're looking for. Nowadays, they look
well, that's
very
the way
much
it goes
for-
now.
Typecasting is becoming almost a menace.
It's you have to be prepared, I think, to go if you finally get, let's say you get past that reception and you get a date for an audition, for a reading for something, you had better know exactly what that girl is that you're reading for, and you'd better dress just like that and look just like that, or because the imagination of the casting people is.
Now you're saying that luck helps, but a little careful planning.
Wouldn't you say it's a bonus?
Right. Today, preparing, I think, to meet people is almost a business in itself. You know, the pictures and what to have and how
changing your clothes 14 times at home before you decide.
And it's quite a study. They say acting is a business, and
well, how would you appraise opportunities right now in 1965 compared to what they have been in the past?
Oh, gosh, I haven't been around to... I haven't been making rounds.
Are there fewer, or are they about...
Spread out more. There's so many more, like, for instance, what we're doing right now. Is the television, I think, is, well, I suppose statistics show there are many more actors working today.
And I think also the theatres that are springing up all over the country, I don't think Broadway is the ultimate in the theatre. I think it's a very healthy sign that the theatres, and very good ones, are springing. Look at Minneapolis, look at the excellent...
The Milwaukee Rep. As a matter of fact, this is a good point for the young girl in the Middle West or the Middle wherever, is that she can look around her own community now, and there are repertory companies, and there are groups.
They all cast out of New York.
Oh, no, they not necessarily. I don't find that to be true. No, I don't think so.
I really feel, ladies, that the theater has a future that we haven't envisioned yet, you know. A theater that may be, say, for instance, part of the work of our lives, part of the lives of many more people. I think in this coming automated society that we're going to have, people are going to have much more leisure time. We're going to have national theater. We're going to have, we won't have the actors to fill the jobs that will be demanded. I sincerely believe that, because with people having less work to do, our work, I think, is going to take on a different shape. Work might be called a theater. Work might be painting. Work might be developing one's physique. I think theater has a tremendous role to play in this spiritual development, this spiritual revolution that's coming next in our country.
Yes. How about off-Broadway for the young actress coming to New York?
It's marvelous. Yes. When I first came to New York, now I'll talk about myself, it was about 10 years ago when off-Broadway was beginning to be, when there was beginning to be a lot of it. Before that, it had been very small and select. But the first job I got was off-Broadway. And it's marvelous, because if you're in a show off-Broadway, then you can go into these offices and say, I am working. I am playing so-and-so in such and such a production. Please come and see me, you know. It's just fantastic. And another thing about off-Broadway is that they do a lot, and these repertory theaters across the country, is that they do classics, so that that's another reason it's important to have a knowledge of Shakespeare and Moliere and Ibsen and Shaw and Chekhov and etc., because you just may have a chance to use this. When my husband and I first came, all my experience had been in playing classics, and I thought I could just kiss them goodbye. You know, I thought I'd never work in classics again. And the first thing I did was play Olivia in Twelfth Night off-Broadway, you know, for $30.
I'm going to take back what I said about the Milwaukee Repertory Company, because a friend of mine is a producer, Jack McQuiggan, and what Inga said was very true. They do come to New York every year and cast. But what I was talking about, the young girl, like, say, in Milwaukee, to become acquainted with the Milwaukee Repertory Company.
Oh, yes.
To go to a man like Jack McQuiggan and say, may I have a walk-on, or may I work as an apprentice, or may I assistant stage manager, all of that.
Excellent experience.
Being involved with it when you're
and there are so many summer stock theaters all across the country now, and many of them have schools connected with them.
Is this really worthwhile?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because even if these summer stock companies work on a package, what we call a package basis, that means they bring in an entire cast of a show. If you're an apprentice, you can watch these people work. You can watch Miss Skinner or Miss Stritch or Ruby Dee work in a play, and you can... I mean, that's experience, just being around them and watching them. You can also learn about scenery and lighting and makeup, and you can learn how to put on a false eyelash by just saying, Miss Stritch, could you show me how? I mean...
You're really working in the business.
Sure, you're in the business and you're a part of it, and you may just... when I was a little girl, I always looked like I was going on 30 because I was so tall. And I got a couple of walk-ons in summer stock just because of that, you know, because I hung around so much. And I could play the maid, you know, because I looked like I was older than I was. I mean, just you know, go where the theater is.
Well, now, are there maids anymore? Hasn't the economics of the American theater such that the plays that are being written don't have so many opportunities for
They're all
young
about
actors
poor
and
people,
actresses?
too, most of the new plays.
Yeah.
Who's got a maid?
Who has a maid, whether you're poor or not?
They're always the revival of Noel Coward's drawing room comedies and stock. And
Noel Coward's maids had very small parts.
well,
Yes,
There's a tendency.
well, unless they turn out to be the star part.
well,
This
you,
is
The
a-
comic one.
Dusting her way to
Dusting
fame.
her way with her boots on.
This is a curve, and I don't know if there's any answer to it. How long would you say a girl coming to New York from Arizona or
Oh, I'm glad she's
Minnesota?
coming from the Southwest. We're kind of the Middle West.
How long should she give herself to gain this precious foothold? Is there any answer to that question?
How would she what?
How long should she give herself?
I mean, should she set herself a certain amount of time?
And then before
Before
she
she gives
packs
up?
the suitcase and heads back to
Phoenix.
Phoenix, where they probably have very good theater anyway.
Excellent sombrero. It's from the best.
Don't you think that's
I think it's a kind of a relatively a personal matter, and also, you know, individual, and settled a great deal by outside circumstances. You know,
Absolutely.
How is it going? What is she doing? Is she working?
Does she have an income?
Yes, so many circumstances would decide that. You know, and I think she'll learn a great deal about whether or not she really wants to be an actress.
Right.
You know, during this process, she might even change her mind or change her field within the
sick of
theater.
living on peanut butter and soda crackers, you know. I mean, you may just find out how dedicated you are. And then, I mean, there are so many individual problems. For instance, I went to college with a girl who played all the leads. She was just fantastic. Oh, one of the loveliest actresses I've ever worked with. But she is not a commercial type, and she won't be until she's in her 40s. I mean, because that's the kind of role she plays. Now,
Does she know this?
Oh, I'm sure she does, yes.
Then she's all right.
But if she's intelligent enough to know that and still believe enough in her talent, she should stick it out until then.
Now, let's assume that our girl coming in is not going to be lucky and hit something right away, and that she has to face 2 or 3 years of the peanut butter and soda crackers. Is this breaking in is there fun anyway, or is it a lonely business? How would you appraise that?
Well, I remember talking before we went on the air in the makeup room that a person must make their own fun in the theater. If you go at it and you know, dedication is a lovely word, but I was saying that I had many, many lonely nights and still do in the theater, because the transition from the excitement of an audience clapping and bravoing and cheering you on the stage, and 11:15 comes, and unless you have a happily married life, let's say, for instance, if you are a career woman and you live alone, the shock is very great, because life is very exciting up to a certain point. However, I did say this, that I think you have to make your own social fun. You have to be just as creative in your personal life as you are in your creative life.
Does the professional life inhibit a full personal life outside the walls of the theater? Marriage, for instance. Now, Miss D, you're an example of one who most certainly combined the two.
Yes, and I must say that's difficult, and that again I think depends upon the dedication. I don't think if a person is dedicated enough in the theater, marriage is not a necessary prerequisite for a happy life for that person. They perhaps will do much, much more because they have more time to devote to that thing in which they're interested.
An understanding husband helps.
But
Yes.
and marrying somebody in the business, I hope but I think it's a good thing
Before you
when you
get
find
married, be good and sure that the man is going to
Going to
understand
be
what
sympathetic. And yet also, I think, I'm speaking again personally, having had 35 happily married years, was someone who was not of the theatre, and I think it needs a great deal of adjustment. I think you have to adjust certain things. I think that I've been spared a lot of extracurricular things that the average married woman, card clubs and things like that, which is perfectly wonderful. I've never
But I must
shuffled
say,
back the cards in my life.
Suppose that you were to have the opportunity to give one commandment to the young aspirant coming into New York to break into the theater. What would the one thing be that you'd want to say to her more than anything else? Inga Swenson, can
Do
we
I
start
have to
with you?
start? Oh, gee, there are just so many of them. But I guess it's what I would say is where we started was get as much education as you can, and be sure of what you want before you try it. Be terribly sure.
Bring that in.
Don't go into it unless you can't not do it, because it's just too difficult.
Ms. Skinner, what would you...
Yes, I would completely agree with that, and I'd say don't go in too starry-eyed, because it isn't all the glamour that you think it's going to be, that it's played up to be. And be prepared for awful hard knocks and dreadful heartache and terrible blows to your pride.
Elaine Stritch?
Well, I don't want to be too philosophical, but my feeling has been, from my experience, that love is the most important thing in the whole world in the theater. And I would tell any young girl, and honesty. And I would say to be full of it, and to be terribly unselfish in every way, and don't put up with a lack of it in any company, in any relationship, because I think that's what gives bloom to a creative person, is having that around them.
And Miss D?
I'd like to say, if you're from Joplin or Chicago or wherever you are, before you come to New York, look where you are and see if you can make theater there, because watch out, New York might be coming to you.
And
Marvelous.
And thanks to you and all of you, it is very definitely still going on, and it's going to go on in the future. For joining us on Camera 3 today, our thanks and appreciation to Ruby D., Elaine Stritch, Cornelia Otis Skinner, Inga Swenson. And until next week, this is Jim McAndrew saying goodbye for Camera 3.